September 2022. Inside a hotel room barely large enough to hold a single bed, the only light comes from a TV screen, flickering weakly in the darkness. There is no expensive setup, no secret workspace, just an Amazon Fire Stick plugged in behind the TV, a smartphone lying loosely on the blanket, and the hotel's unstable Wi-Fi connection. On the bed, a teenager sits motionless, his back slightly hunched, eyes fixed on the screen as if it were the only world he still had to cling to. Outside, the street is unnaturally quiet, until unmarked vehicles silently pull up at the entrance. Car doors open. Men dressed in dark clothing step out, speaking in short, hushed whispers. The FBI, British cybercrime specialists. They have been watching him for days, and tonight is the end. 8:30 in the evening, they stand in front of the hotel room door. No answer. Just seconds later, the door bursts open. Heavy footsteps, sharp commands, the teenager's body forced down onto the cold floor. Handcuffs snap shut quickly. Devices are seized and sealed in evidence bags with mechanical efficiency. What is strange is that he does not resist. No screaming, no pleading. Only a brief glance toward the TV screen before it goes dark, as if he had been prepared for this moment all along. To them, he is just a kid playing hacker. What they do not know is that only days earlier, in this same poor hotel room, he had touched something no one his age should ever have been able to reach. And that impossible act has just shaken an entire empire. Rewind several years earlier, long before flashing police lights and cold hotel rooms. Arian was just a boy living with his family in the UK, quiet and different. He was autistic, which made communicating with the world around him far more difficult than it was for others. Even simple conversations could feel like a maze with no exit. At school, Arian was rarely heard. He struggled to make friends, did not know how to join shared moments of laughter, and slowly became a faint shadow within the crowd. No friends, no voice, no one who truly understood what was happening inside his mind. The outside world was loud, chaotic, filled with unspoken rules Arian could not grasp. But when he came home and turned on a computer, everything changed. In games, the world followed clear logic. Right was right, wrong was wrong. There was no need to guess emotions or read body language. There, Arian felt safe. Minecraft became the first door into that world, a space where he could build, destroy, and explore at his own pace. Each block stacked neatly on another gave him a sense of control real life had never offered. In the silence of his small room, through long nights without conversation, Minecraft was more than a game. It was the only place Arian truly felt he belonged, where he was no longer a lost child, but someone who could understand and command an entire world. Yet even in that world that seemed fair, Arian kept losing. In intense PvP battles, he was not the strongest, nor the fastest. His reactions were slightly slower, his decisions a fraction too late, and the outcome was almost always the same: defeat. Again and again, Arian's character fell before other players, and each time that familiar feeling returned. The feeling of being left behind, the feeling of always being less than others, no matter how hard he tried. But instead of quitting, Arian began to observe. If he could not win with strength or speed, he would win another way. He started searching for small cracks in the game, unfinished rules, errors others ignored. At first it was simple tricks, scattered guides on forums. Then he grew dissatisfied with using what others had already found. He wanted to understand everything from the ground up. He studied how servers worked, how data was sent and confirmed, how systems that looked solid could still fail because of a single detail. And then it happened. Arian discovered his first vulnerability. It was not something that brought down an entire system, but it was enough to make his heart race. Instead of exploiting it, Arian chose to contact the developers. He wrote an email, carefully describing the issue, asking whether there was a reward program for reporting bugs. The reply came soon after, short and polite. No reward, no recognition, not even a proper thank you, just a cold refusal. To the world, it was just another email. To Arian, it was the breaking point. A child who had spent countless hours understanding what others could not, met only with silence. No one acknowledged his talent. And for the first time, Arian began to wonder, if playing by the rules earned nothing, then did those rules really matter at all? After that rejection, a quiet resentment began to grow inside Arian. Not an explosive anger, but a deep sense of being dismissed, as if his efforts had never existed. He realized he had done everything by the book, and all he received was indifference. From that moment, a decision formed slowly but clearly. Arian would stop asking for permission. If the world would not open the door, he would find his own way through. He began entering forums he had once only skimmed, darker corners of the internet where no one asked your age and no one cared who you were, only what you could do. There, Arian did not need to explain himself or speak much. He only had to prove it. Quietly, he learned, watching how others communicated, how they exchanged information, how they hid their tracks. Step by step, Arian approached more dangerous concepts. SIM swapping, undisclosed vulnerabilities, things ordinary people would never touch. At first it was confusing, risky, overwhelming. But just like in Minecraft, once he understood the rules, the world became clearer. And for the first time, Arian applied what he had learned. A small target, a system that seemed secure. When everything unfolded exactly as predicted, when a door that should have stayed locked opened before him, Arian did not celebrate. He simply sat there, silent, heart pounding. For the first time in his life, he was no longer the one being defeated, no longer the child on the sidelines. He had beaten the system, and that feeling, the feeling of total control, sank deep into Arian's mind, powerful enough for him to realize he had just crossed a line he would never be able to step back from. From that moment on, everything moved faster than Arian had ever imagined. He began targeting cryptocurrency holders, accounts protected by layers of security, believed to be unbreakable. There was no violence, no direct threats, only the manipulation of people on the other end of a phone call. Step by step, Arian transferred control of phone numbers, then unlocked every remaining door. Each success brought money into his wallet, quietly, almost invisibly. No gunshots, no blood, no one aware of what had just happened. Only numbers steadily rising. Eventually, the total passed a mark even adults struggled to comprehend. More than 300 Bitcoin, a massive fortune for a teenager who had never held a place in the real world. Yet strangely, Arian did not buy luxury cars, did not show off online, did not dramatically change his outward life. He stayed in the same rooms, spent the same long nights staring at screens, remained just as quiet. Because to Arian, money was not for spending, it was proof. Proof that he was not worthless. Proof that every moment of being ignored, dismissed, and rejected had been the world's mistake, not his. Each number in his wallet felt like a silent confirmation that Arian had value, that he could do what others could not. And for the first time in his life, within the cold stillness of the digital world, Arian felt something deeply human, the feeling of existing, the feeling of being someone, not in the eyes of others, but within his own mind. With money and skills secured, Arian began to believe he needed more. Being alone in the shadows was no longer enough. He wanted a group, something resembling the sense of belonging real life had never given him. Infinity Recursion was born from that desire. A small collective, made up of unfamiliar names from across the world, people who lived behind screens and in darkness, just like him. At first, Arian had high expectations. He wanted the group to leave a mark, to prove they were more than isolated individuals at computers. But reality fell short. The attacks were small, uncoordinated, the rewards uneven. Frustration grew. Quiet arguments, clashing egos in digital space. No one truly listened, and Infinity Recursion collapsed almost as quickly as it had formed. For Arian, it was more than a strategic failure. It revived the old feeling of being abandoned and overlooked, even though he was the most capable person in the room. This time, however, Arian did not retreat. From the fragments, he selected only the most loyal members, those willing to go further, and created a new name, Lapsus. No longer a group focused on silent profit, the objective had changed. Money became secondary. What Arian truly wanted was fear. He wanted corporations to panic, governments to pay attention, the world to speak that name. The attacks became public, bold, openly defiant. Arian was no longer just a hacker behind a screen. He was shaping himself into a symbol within the underground. A name that demanded caution, a presence impossible to ignore. And beneath it all, it remained a deeply human desire of a child who had once been invisible. To be seen, to be remembered, to be acknowledged as someone who existed and mattered in this world. What followed went far beyond anything Arian had attempted before. lapsus began targeting names that alone inspired hesitation. Brazil's Ministry of Health was the first major strike. In a short time, critical systems were crippled, medical data vanished, essential services for millions abruptly stopped. On screens, instead of official notices, appeared the cold messages of the intruders. News spread rapidly. Panic moved beyond server rooms into society itself. Soon after, a major Portuguese media company became the next target. Then telecommunications firms, security companies, the very organizations meant to protect the digital world. Each attack was public, unapologetic, a direct challenge to governments and global corporations. For the public, it was fear. Fear that personal data was exposed. Fear that what once felt secure was fragile, after all. For Arian, it was something else entirely: power. For the first time, he realized he could influence the lives of millions through silent decisions. Every breaking headline, every panicked news report acted like a powerful drug, pulling him deeper. Arian began to believe no one could truly stop him. Police, governments, security firms all seemed one step behind. In his mind, massive systems became fragile structures, like the blocks in Minecraft he once destroyed, breakable if you knew where to hit. And as fear became his measure of success, the last boundaries inside Arian faded. He stopped thinking about consequences. He saw only one thing clearly: he was above it all, too high to be touched. And that belief, that he was untouchable, pushed Arian further into dangerous territory, where each new victory carried an increasingly heavy price. At the peak of that confidence, Arian made a decision driven more by ego than reason. He purchased Doxbin, a notorious platform known for hosting leaked data and the darkest secrets of the internet. In Arian's mind, it was more than a business deal. It was a declaration that he had reached a higher level, no longer just an intruder, but someone in control. But Arian had never been a manager. He knew how to break systems, not maintain them. Within a short time, Doxbin descended into chaos. Poor management, internal conflicts, reckless decisions caused the platform to slip from his hands. When Doxbin was taken back, the loss was not just financial, it was humiliation, a deep wound to an ego that had grown too large. In quiet fury, Arian chose the path he knew best: revenge. He hacked Doxbin, stole its databases, and leaked everything online. A message that even without ownership, he was still stronger. This time, the world did not stay silent. The community turned against him. Those he thought were allies struck back. They dug, traced, connected fragments of information. Then the worst happened. Arian's real identity was exposed. His real name, his face, photos of him with his family, private moments never meant for public eyes. From an invisible name online, Arian suddenly became flesh and blood to the entire world. The darkness that once protected him vanished overnight. No shield, no distance. The true tragedy was not exposure itself, but that Arian had never been prepared for the light. He had built power in silence, and when everything was dragged into public view, all that remained was the vulnerability of a teenager who had not yet grown up. After his identity was revealed, Arian was no longer an anonymous shadow. Police came for him repeatedly. Interrogations followed, cold rooms, the same questions asked again and again of a teenager who hardly resembled the global threat they were chasing. To investigators, especially the FBI, Arian appeared to be a rare technical prodigy. They believed the attacks were driven by complex code, advanced exploits, methods far beyond ordinary understanding. But as they looked closer, the truth unsettled them. Arian did not rely on cutting-edge technology. His greatest weapon was people. Convincing phone calls, perfectly crafted emails, subtle details that led others to trust him and open doors themselves. It was psychological manipulation, something security systems struggled to defend against. Because of his age, Arian was released time after time. Eventually, authorities chose constant surveillance. He was placed in a hotel room, monitored, with no internet, no personal devices, every move observed. To law enforcement, this was the end. They believed the threat was contained, the child finally controlled. The game, in their minds, was over. But in that artificial calm, Arian returned to a familiar state, trapped between four walls, voiceless, powerless, stripped of the one thing that made him feel alive. And in that moment, while everyone believed the danger had passed, a dangerous idea began
All
to
right, you're all
form.
set. Thanks
If
for
they
shopping
thought
with us.
he had
Thank
nowhere
you.
left
Have
to
a good
go, then perhaps the next move would be the one no one expected. During those days of surveillance, Arian learned patience. He did not resist, did not show frustration, allowing everyone to believe he had accepted defeat. In silence, he observed. Schedules, routines, the small gaps in control that seemed absolute. One morning, Arian left the hotel as usual, walked into a nearby store, and bought 3 ordinary items: an Amazon Fire Stick, a wireless mouse, and a small keyboard. No one paid attention. No one imagined such cheap objects could be dangerous. Back in the room, Arian plugged the Fire Stick into the TV, turning an entertainment screen into a makeshift computer. No workstation, no lab, just hotel Wi-Fi and a suffocating silence. In that moment, he was no longer a monitored child, but his true self. Arian wrote a simple email, posing as an employee who had forgotten a password. Each sentence carefully crafted to feel natural. One email, one human mistake on the other end, and the door opened. Arian was inside Rockstar Games' system. Files appeared on the screen, projects the world was waiting for, early footage of GTA, secrets guarded with extreme care. His heart raced, not from fear, but from knowing this was the decisive moment. Arian did not keep it to himself. He released everything online. As the information spread, the world was stunned. Gamers froze, companies panicked, media exploded. No one could believe it had happened from a hotel TV. For Arian, it was the peak, not just of skill, but of his need to be remembered, a mark that could not be erased. A moment where the world was forced to look directly at a name they believed had already been controlled. The shock of the GTA leak did not last long before every door closed. This time, Arian had no escape. Agents returned to the familiar hotel room, faster and more decisive than before. He was restrained for the final time, silently, as if everything had been set in motion the moment he pressed send. Yet the ending was not a cold prison cell as many expected. Instead, Arian was placed in a high-security psychiatric hospital, where doors remained locked, and time moved painfully slowly. There were no glowing screens, no digital worlds left to hide in, only a teenager facing himself. Before disappearing behind thick walls and steel barriers, Arian was reported to have said one short sentence, calm and unsettling: "I will come back." No one knows whether it was a threat, a promise to himself, or the last echo of a mind that never found its place. The story ends there, leaving a question hanging in the listener's mind. Was Arian a lost genius, or simply the product of a system that failed to protect and guide children who were different? When society fails to listen, are we creating these tragedies ourselves, only realizing it when everything has already gone too far?